Hey Meredith.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm a little flustered because craziest thing happened. So I'm right next to a middle school and a children's museum in my office. And so there's actually like police officers and a principal and a parent on my porch
Oh,
because a mom who has kind of had neglect of a child came to a um what do you call it? A field trip.
hmm.
Took her kid, and then the police were trying to figure out who has the right, parental rights, custodial rights to this kid. And so my school social worker Hart was like, saw them all talking in the pouring down rain and was like, oh, like, anyway,
Wow.
I'm a little flustered.
Yeah,
Uh,
understandable.
yeah, I can still hear them talking. But I'm so excited that I got um this slot with you.
Yeah, absolutely. What would
I
be
want to make the most of
helpful?
it. So,
Yeah.
Sarah may be joining my I don't know if I um when she'll pop in, but um one of our big questions was, so I'm doing like incident to or supervisory billing with her for Cigna Insurance. And one
Hmm.
of my questions is, as I'm doing more administrative stuff, like shifting to a group practice owner,
Hmm.
can I can I still do supervisory billing with, so like when I was talking with Lindsay, you can get off an insurance panel, but like my name is signed on all the documents for Sarah.
Hmm.
So I can't myself,
Get off without her being off.
right?
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I believe so. I mean, I don't want to speak for any insurance company because they're all different. And like Blue
Right.
Cross
So
Blue Shield
true.
in one state is different from Blue Cross Blue Shield in another.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't feel,
That would make sense.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable making a blanket statement. I could see an argument for either depending on where you're at and which company. But
Okay, I feel less
yeah,
flustered now that they've left the space.
got it.
It's just like in fight or flight, um, for a minute there. Yeah. So then, okay, Sarah wanted to make sure we picked your brain about social media and like
Hmm.
where we could get the most bang for your buck,
Hmm.
our efforts, and how do we. I think we're doing pretty well right now. I think I might hire I am going to hire a third person and then
Awesome.
I just raise my rates.
Hmm.
Um, but where should we spend our efforts?
Yeah. So tell me why social?
Um, that's a good question. Um, well, I'm working with an SEO person
Mhm.
who I've hired privately to help me just optimize my
Yeah.
keywords and all that.
Hmm.
Um, but I'd like to get more referrals for for us, especially with as I drop insurance.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So I guess to
Okay.
have a bigger pool, because I think a fair number of people are going to be like, yeah, I can't pay that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it comes down to like the why social versus one of the many other ways to market because social
Yeah.
is the one that takes the most time and energy ongoingly.
Hmm.
If
Okay.
social is like a creative outlet for you and you enjoy it or Sarah enjoys it, somebody enjoys it,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, if it is
Sarah's
not,
texting me. I'm gonna see if she's having trouble signing on. Oh, she's in the waiting room, she said.
oh, she's not in this waiting room.
Ooh. Oh, she's in my waiting room probably. Go to the email with the abundance practice link. Sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, I was surprised how much the networking really like generated so many.
Yeah.
And even like my PCP, I was like, oh, by the way, just like shared. And she was like, oh my gosh, I have eating disorder people for you. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yes, great, send them our way.
And what a great doc to know that. So
Yes,
many don't.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
She's young, so she's
Mhm.
savvy and
Up
with
on
it.
it.
So yeah, yeah, I don't. She's doing a lot of other networking with like local folks. Here, let's see.
Here comes Sarah. She just
Here
came
she
in.
is. Okay.
So here we go. Oh,
Gosh.
hey,
Hi,
Sarah.
I'm so sorry.
It's
I
all right.
Google Meet link in the email. It doesn't matter. I'm here now. I'm so sorry.
Oh
Oh.
no.
It
Okay,
was
sorry.
no, it was my bad. I wasn't thinking it through.
It's okay.
Well, it's good to see you.
You too. It's nice to see you.
So we were just talking about social, and my question was why social?
Mm.
Like if it's a creative, fun way to do this, that's great.
Mhm.
If it is just a thing you think you have to do to get more clients, then I would not recommend it.
Okay.
Simply because social takes the most time and energy of pretty much any of the marketing strategies. Um, so I don't know. Where are y'all with that? Because I can dive into social if you want to go into that.
So, but it sounds like networking is like
Networking
a
is
better place.
yeah, the most effective,
Okay.
most efficient. Like it's you've got to lay groundwork as you experienced, right? It's not like you met with somebody and the next day they sent you a referral. It's like building a true relationship and like their sense of safety with you as somebody they want to send people to.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
And you've been doing that quite a bit, right, Sarah?
I have, yeah. This month specifically, I focused heavily on like dietitians
Awesome.
who work with eating disorders to try to network with that. So I've met with quite a few this month, which has been, yeah, I think going really well. And I don't know if it's, yeah, like you said, like resulted in referrals yet, but I think that I've like connected very well with some of them, which I'm excited about for sure. So, oh
We
geez.
should definitely keep track of where clients are coming from.
Yeah,
In Simple Practice, you can kind of put that like referral source.
right. I do typically, yeah,
Okay.
I think I need to be better about that in general. I know so far that none of mine have come from dietitians, I guess is what I should have said.
Mhm.
But yeah, I should be better about more specifically like where they're coming from because I don't think I track that like that necessarily.
Yeah. And that can be a part of your intake paperwork, just a quick
Mhm.
like, how did
Yeah.
you hear about us?
That's smart.
And that way you don't have to remember to ask every time because they will have filled it out.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think with like social media, I guess I can talk about like my perspective. I do think it's probably like a mixture of both for me. Like I do think that there's like a really fun, like creative side of it that I think I would enjoy in theory.
Uh-huh.
I do think there's part of me that's like, oh, it's probably great for marketing and like getting clients as well. So I think that's probably my push, like why I feel like we should do it now.
Mhm.
I think that I would like to do it just as like a creative thing and something fun for us at some point, but I'm also realistically like know that that's probably not possible like with my time at the moment. So that makes sense.
Yeah. I
You
mean, I
have
think
to learn a whole like software and
Mhm.
yeah. The
like it's
learning
out
curve.
there. There's it, and I'll say they make it easier now than they ever have. Like I think it wouldn't take too much to learn the software itself. Figuring out what works that brings people in is the thing that takes some testing.
Right.
Like
And some
which hashtags to use and
are not even hashtags, but like so like reels, for instance, are better at building building followers than a lot of things. Stories are the things that have people more likely to call or buy. Um,
Mhm.
There are like a static post of a quote isn't going to do anything for you. Like
Yeah.
just figuring out what's working, what's fun, like
I've heard like with Instagram, you need to be willing to like be on camera. And I was like,
yeah.
That's the other thing, right?
about that. That's not my favorite thing.
Right.
Yeah. You definitely have to show your face. I mean, there are some faceless ones out there, but I haven't seen any faceless therapist accounts because
Right.
you're not building trust without your face most of the
Right.
time.
100%.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So
So it sounds like things like networking are probably a more efficient use of our time and beneficial.
and I mean, y'all have like you've built enough for the two of you and you're adding a third person. So like
Mhm.
I would look at what has worked thus far.
Mhm.
Getting off insurance doesn't mean the things that worked so far aren't going to work.
Right.
Like there will still be
That's
people who
true.
call who can't afford it out of pocket, in which case you're going to have amazing referrals for them.
Mhm.
But if they, there's also this contingent of people who called because they were like, they liked what you had to say on your website, or they were
Mhm.
referred by someone they
Yes.
trust.
Mhm.
They have insurance and would love to use their insurance, but they're okay to pay out of pocket because they trust you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so there's just that piece of like, as long
Yeah.
as your marketing is on point, like there's the people finding you piece, and then there's the they found you, was it valuable for them piece.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
long as you make your marketing valuable enough that they're like, I see myself here, I feel like
Right.
I will be well taken care of, and like this is the place.
Yeah.
If they can afford it, they usually will.
Yeah. And yeah, I've had people say, oh, like, yes, when you said that, I was like, oh, on your website that really
Mhm.
spoke to my experience. And that's one of our competitors locally actually has one of your websites that you guys must have built for her. And I was like, oh, no wonder it's so good. Because it really like makes people feel like,
Mhm.
they're like she knows exactly what the client is experiencing. So
Yeah. And there's plenty of clients for y'all too, like for everybody.
it's true.
So it's like y'all will describe it in a different way than your competitor does, and it will land better for the people that are meant for you.
Yeah.
And it'll land better for your competitor in the ways than the people that are meant for them.
Totally.
So
That makes
it's
sense.
like y'all have a different spin and a different perspective, even if clinically you're very aligned with this other practice.
Mhm.
Right. It's true. It's true. Yeah. We do offer inference-based CBT, which I don't know that Beth does. But Sarah, by the way, before you showed, I asked Allison about the Cigna question of like, and she doesn't know for sure because every insurance is different, but my gut says, yeah, I can't like end mine and then also
Right.
bill under my name through you.
Right.
That wouldn't make sense.
So I'm assuming, would the option for you then be like you are in network with Cigna, it's just that you personally are not taking insurance? Like, is that an option?
Yeah, that's another good question for Allison. So I think what you're saying is, can I say I'm no longer accepting new Cigna clients or?
You cannot,
Okay.
probably, according to your contract that you signed.
Okay.
Because most of the contracts have this thing that say like you will not discriminate against the fact that somebody has this insurance. And this is where a lot of people I've never seen anybody get in trouble for it. Like, I don't know how they know or whatever know,
Right.
but just if we're following the rules, which I want to
Right.
preach the rules.
Yes, we're rule followers.
I know we're all there. We're all eating disorder therapists, rule followers. Imagine that. All cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
So I think there's most of the contracts say that, and some people just bypass that, and that's their risk to take. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm guessing, again, rule follower, I think that's totally fair. But in theory, even if it was Meredith saying like, I can't take Cigna, but this person can't, like me, Sarah can, that's still not the same thing, right?
I'm not sure. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
That's-
Something
again.
that I'll see people do sometimes is like in their screening call or the screening email. If you've got a screener situation, then it says like,
Yeah.
what kind of insurance do you have? In which
Mhm.
case you could just have all those people like go to Sarah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I don't know if
Mhm.
that's okay or not, but that's what I see some people doing in a group
Mhm.
practice situation. You're not denying them care at your practice
Mhm.
That's
because
true.
of the insurance. So I think there could be an argument made there. But again, I never want to speak for an insurance company because me and insurance companies think in very different ways.
Yes.
So
Amen.
I think insurance companies and the
The
general
rest of the
population.
world.
yeah.
So when you're talking screening, are you talking about like an email reply to a form or?
Yeah, it can be a form like a good HIPAA compliant form. If you guys use Hushmail for your email, they have forms. Some EHRs will do it. Some people have the HIPAA compliant on their side, like Google Suite, and you can do something there. But it can basically be like you can even do it on your contact form on your website.
Mm.
Of just like a quick, like I have one that's a checkbox. You can't really call us. You have to email us because we needed to slow down referrals.
Yeah.
And so we have a thing that's just like, I acknowledge that this is a private pay practice at, X number of dollars, depending on the clinician. Um, and yeah. And
Yeah.
so that has cut down on a lot of calls that
Yeah.
would not have been able to afford us. They will sometimes email and ask for referrals, which we're happy to give.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it just got to a point where like I
Yeah.
can't call that many people back in a day. And I also am do as I say, not as I do about outsourcing that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, we implemented that. Like, I acknowledge that these
Mhm.
therapists don't accept these insurances.
mhm.
Because we kept getting, and then even though we
Yeah,
still
we
get
still-
people who ask if we take them, like, do you remember when you pushed
Yeah.
that?
Right. Yeah. People don't
Oh.
read. It's yeah. I
Oh.
mean, but you could do the same thing on that same exact form. You could have, if you have one of these insurance and list the insurances that are taken in the practice, which do you have with a blank?
Mhm.
And then, they can go
Mhm.
where they need to go.
Yeah. Oh, that would be smart. So that's part of the form is check which insurance you have. And then on the back end, have it routed to Sarah or myself.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
That makes sense.
Any other questions for Miss Allison,
Oh
Sarah?
my gosh.
I told her, I was like, Allison is hard to come by.
Mhm.
This is my, it's been 5 months and this is my first one-on-one that I've snagged. I forget to set an alarm.
Yeah. Yeah. They go fast.
Yeah. No, I think so a question I guess that I had, which Meredith and I have talked about this, like Meredith is raising her rates and things like that. And we talked about me potentially doing so as well. Even if just by like a small margin. So yeah, that's just, I guess, something that's on my radar in terms of figuring out like what that looks like and what makes sense and all of that. And we also kind of very briefly talked about like charging for like extra work, like writing letters and things. So I guess like those are the couple of things that are just have been on my mind.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
And I
already
think,
started doing that. $100 for any kind of official letter.
Mhm.
I got a request for an emotional support letter, a request for, emotional support animal,
Mhm.
request for like, hey, recommending inpatient treatment for this person. And it's like, yeah, that's time. And most
Mhm.
people are like, of course,
Right.
yeah, because they're like other professions get paid for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lawyer who was like, yeah, we'll pay for it. I was
Right.
like,
Exactly.
yep.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
will.
So I guess like where's the line between like what are we charging for? What are we not?
Mhm.
Like everything takes our time. So I guess it's like for me at least, what Yeah, where's that line?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do, because as you know, as an eating disorder provider, like you end up talking to a lot of different providers. Like sometimes you're talking to their dietitian or their PCP or whomever.
Right.
And so I set my rate assuming I would do a certain amount of that because
Mm,
I didn't want to have to keep up with like billing for all those and
Mhm.
like, you
smart.
know, and especially because especially like a therapist dietitian combo, I find that it tends to be more long-winded than it needs to be because
Right.
sometimes, especially if
We're
it's somebody you have a
talkers.
relationship with, you're like,
Yeah.
well, how is your son doing with X, Y, and Z? You know,
Right.
I'm not going to charge a client for that. Versus like if I'm talking to a PCP, it's like quick, easy, done in like 3 minutes. And do I want to charge for 3 minutes? You know,
Right.
so I just absorb that in. Things like letters, it makes sense to charge for like family team meetings, getting really clear about how those work if you're doing those, because I think about, you know, if I'm sitting down with a dietitian, it's usually me and a dietitian and a client and maybe their parent.
Mhm.
Um, that's a lot of, if they're paying both of us for that time, that's a lot. So figuring out on the front end what that looks like with the dietitians you work with the most, depending on how often that happens.
Mhm.
Like we have somebody in my practice who does a lot of work with anorexic teenagers. So that just happens a lot more for her than
Mhm.
it does for everybody else. And that's an hour out of her schedule that needs to be compensated.
Right.
Mhm.
So um
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
don't know if you
know.
do food challenges. That's another thing to consider. Like with like our RFID clients, sometimes we'll go out to eat.
Mhm.
And like who pays for that? Like as the business owner, I pay for that. So I'm paying for my employee's meal, which I'm good with, and the client is paying for their meal. So just being really clear on those kinds of like
Right.
stratifications of all the weird stuff we sometimes do as eating disorder providers.
Right.
So
That makes sense.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
you're like, look, sometimes it can be a good way. I know, Sarah, you write really thoughtful emails, but perhaps, that was a challenge that someone
Mhm.
said to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I love to write a summary letter or a summary
Uh-huh.
email of the resources that we discussed today during our session.
Mhm.
Those can suck so much time.
Yeah, have a
So,
template for those.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's just a
smart.
copy paste. And I mean,
Yeah.
like you could even have it of like under headings of like this is what I give to parents of
Mhm.
like kids with
Yes.
anorexia. This is what I give
Section
to
one. Yeah.
partners
Yeah.
of adults with binge eating disorder or whatever. You know, like you can just have a quick cut and paste. They're feeling very taken care of. You're taking great care of
Yes.
them, but you're not having to rewrite the same thing you've already written. In fact, I'd go through the emails you've already sent and use
Mhm.
those as
Yes.
templates.
That's so
Totally.
smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
Meredith, that was a very kind way to say I do. Like it is such a
Because
downfall
he's
of
written them
mine.
to me,
Like
and I'm like, if you're doing this for 20 clients, like, there's no way you have enough time in your day to do it.
right. And I have started doing that, like the template thing just for like, inquiries and referral, like things like that. I
Mhm.
have started doing that to cut down on my time. And it actually is on my list. I have like a things to do if I have extra time kind of list. And
Mhm.
that is one of them, like email
Yeah.
responses and trying to get that. Yeah,
That's
I think that's a good way to put it because I think some of the time, a lot of the time that I'm dedicating towards things that I'm like, this is so much of my time, I should be getting paid for this, is
Mhm.
actually things that could probably be done in at least half the amount of time, but I'm
Right.
just like overexerting myself. So
Mhm. Oh,
And I've
another
had clients,
overexerter.
yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
shocker. Yeah. I have
I get
clients
it.
who don't even read my emails, my
uh-huh.
emails, or, it's like,
Yes.
why are we working harder than the client?
Uh-huh.
If anything, I'm sending the link of the worksheets and like,
Uh-huh.
here's what we talked about today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's your homework. Like,
Love
Mhm.
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very smart.
And you can do that in session with them too, before they even leave.
That's what I do.
Right. I
I
typically
open
do.
the
Yeah.
email. That's
Right.
telehealth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Yeah.
Any other words of wisdom? I'm not an eating disorder therapist. I'm
Mhm.
OCD and anxiety is my jam, but
Uh-huh. Right,
Sarah,
right.
that
Yeah.
kind
But
of
there's like
leads
this
so
Venn
nice.
diagram.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, any words of wisdom before we go?
I mean, I think it really comes down to like especially with that Venn diagram, if when you're hiring this third person, making sure it's a
Yes.
Venn diagram person and
Right.
not like something kind of outside that's going to make it harder to market the practice.
Yep.
And pulling from your usual referrals, because the referrals you have for OCD, like those referral sources, are also seeing people with EDs.
Totally.
And making sure they know what's available in your practice now, so that if they
Awesome.
associate you exclusively with OCD, they can also start to associate your practice with EDs.
Right. Right. And we're going to add a frequently asked questions about eating disorders to get some
Awesome.
content on the website.
Yeah. And make sure they're juicy, right? Because if you look at other people's FAQs on any therapist website, most of the time they're like, not a question anybody actually asks. Aside from like, you know, sometimes people ask like, how much are sessions? You know, that one people will ask, but the rest of them are just kind of like copy trash.
Yeah.
So get
AI
really,
stress.
yeah, ChatGPT can't do this, y'all.
No.
But get in
Like-
the mindset of like your ideal clients and the people who love them too, because often they're the ones finding you.
Like things like, will I gain weight in therapy? Like things like that, like that specific, like.
Yeah. And you can look at mine, don't steal them, but you can look at mine on my therapy website and see
Okay.
like, you know, use the same kind of questions if it's helpful, or I don't even know if I have it set up as FAQs, but I'm definitely answering questions in my copy that I get all the time.
Right.
So
Cool.
yeah. And like, how can I help my wife, sister, mother, daughter, you know, like,
Yes.
how can I truly help?
Right.
And each of those could be blog posts too.
Right.
So you could give a short answer and say like, for like more guidance on this, click here.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And the more clicking they do in the website, within the website, gives the website
Absolutely.
more like
Yeah,
clout in the SEO.
absolutely. Yeah.
So-
Google's like, oh, this is all one thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not just like one little spider web. It's a spider web that's cohesive.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Cool.
Thanks so much for your time, Allison.
Yeah, thank
Absolutely.
you.
It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah,
You
it's a
too. I
pleasure.
appreciate your help.
We love your
Yeah.
emails
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thanks. You too. See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.